You are about to journey against the current of contemporary thought and beyond the troubled waters of daily news to the very source of our extraordinary culture. You are going upstream with Cashill and Edge.
Welcome, world, once again to Upstream with Cashill and Edge. This is Jack Cashill here.
Loy Edge here. Hi, Jack, and the world.
And Loy. And let me just rephrase one more time for anyone who just might be joining us why we call this show Upstream. And, of course, it derives from the famous quote by our friend Andrew Breitbart, that all politics is downstream from culture. We'll leave politics to lesser mortals. We'll head upstream to the culture and dissect that at the source so that people will know what will be dribbling down their way in the near future.
So they know when they're out there hey-ho-hoing that we identified how that all started.
That's right.
And it's all by design.
That's
almost
right.
Every time.
When they're carrying their sign saying, my body, my choice, we're going to be there telling you who told you to say that and why you're saying it.
That's right. That's right. And today, speaking of these subversive things that happen to us, one thing under the cover of convenience, we get all kinds of complications thrown at us these days, I've noticed. That the complexity industry sneaks around and they tell us we've got a great convenience for you. And we, of course, people love convenience. I mean, it's going to save you a lot of time to have your telephone, take that thing off the wall. You can have it around in your pocket all the time. It'll be so convenient for you.
It is that, in a manner of speaking.
And the next thing you know, they're tracking everything you do, and you're just investing all kinds of time and effort trying to thwart all these horrible things from happening to you. What made me think of convenience was the other day, I had not since COVID,
right,
and all that implies, and the fact that you know, here in America, you used to, it's time to get a new printer. You'd go down to Staples, Office Depot, or one of these electronics places, and it's just, there'd be all kinds of printers.
Right.
All kinds.
Right.
Different brands, just a big, and now I don't know if you've tried to buy anything recently,
Not
but
a printer, no.
It's like the gum. It's like the government employees market of Russia. It's like, you want printer? Have two printer. Color or color?
Right.
You want HP or brother?
Right.
Well, I don't want a brother. Well, you get HP.
Right.
Okay, so I buy this printer. I needed a color printer.
Right.
And I thought, well, this isn't that bad. It's not really what I want. I got it home, and eventually, with my arthritic hands, I got that convenient packaging all off of there.
Right.
It was so hard to do, and destroyed it completely. So there's just no hope of bringing it back.
Right.
I got it set up, and I plugged it all in, and then it starts telling me some weird message about something I need to register, blah, blah, blah. And it dawned on me, these a-holes are trying to sell me automatic refill ink, and I've got to now jump through a whole bunch of hoops. It took me a day to get my printer hooked up. That's how convenient that has gotten.
Well, you know, and it's an interesting example because convenience cuts both ways. And I'm both an objector to the convenience culture and a supporter in certain things. But my printers have been so historically bad. They're broke more often than they're working.
Me too.
And they're fixing them is such a laborious, frustrating, time-consuming bit of nonsense that I've come to rely on something that is very convenient, which is only 2 blocks away, is my FedEx Kinko office.
Oh yeah.
So here's my story. As in terms of the opposite side of the convenience thing, and that is FedEx. Yeah. I don't have a printer anymore. I don't use a printer. If I have printing to do, which is rare, I just go down to FedEx. On December 31st of this past year, I'm the trustee for one of my sister's trusts. She and her husband have done very well in this world, and they trust me to be the trustee. So I had I don't want to get into too much detail here about it, how much was involved, but it was a major deal that I had to do on December before the new year hit. Right?
Uh-huh.
And so and my printers, I cannot scan, I can't print, I can't do any of that stuff. I said, oh my gosh, I hope FedEx is open. It's open it's open on the 31st. I go down, but this is old-fashioned service too, because they'll do it for you at FedEx, right? In fact, they show you how to use machines, and the lady walks me through this. And it was a transaction that saved a lot of money. I don't want to get into details, but it was a lot of money, right? And you know how much they charged me for the whole operation? It took 2 minutes of this woman's time, 2 to 5 minutes actually. 57 cents. Right?
That's outrageous.
I haven't paid 57 cents since they upped the price on Almond Joys about 30 years ago. You know, it's 57 cents. That was great.
That's fantastic. I love that store.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It's a good one. So there is our culture in some ways works much better than it did, some years ago on something like that, to be able to do that. But you're right. On other ways, the operation of a given printer just drives you crazy.
Oh, yeah. And you used a term, convenience culture.
Right.
Which makes me think of a similar term which we have evolved into, a cargo culture.
As a cargo cult,
A cargo cult. Because and the cargo cult, the term refers to the natives in the islands
right.
during the war.
Right. They saw the airplanes.
They didn't know what these people would crash, or they would land on one of these Pacific islands. They'd never seen white people and airplanes
right.
and all this stuff, and they had radios, all this crazy stuff. So naturally, they assumed these are gods.
And what they did, and this is the sad, tragic, pathetic thing about the cargo cults. And I don't know what island it was, but I remember seeing this movie Mondo Cane. Do you remember this movie?
Mm-mm.
And it was like a documentary sort of thing, but. And the cargo cults, they built their own runway, and they built what looked like airplanes, and they would pray that a big bird would come from the sky filled with radios and food and K rations and whatever else that was involved in these.
Really
plans.
Pathetic, but we're kind of like that now.
We're not much better.
We have no idea how this stuff works that
right.
we have,
right?
And there's nothing like seeing some idiot chewing gum and bitching about their phone, and you realize, wow, that phone is about 3,000 times more intelligent than you are.
Yeah.
And it actually does things.
And what they do is they try to move you away from any ability to control your phone.
Absolutely.
So, for instance, my phone is aging, and people are saying, "Oh, Jack, you really need a new phone."
Oh, yeah.
I don't know,
built-in obsolescence.
It's a
on all these
Samsung,
things.
whatever. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But here's what I can do. When when it goes down, I could take the back off, take the battery out, and just put the battery back in. It's like unplugging a computer.
Yes.
And it works so fine again, right?
Yeah.
And the new ones you can't get at your battery.
Nope.
Just like you can't get at the battery of your car.
That's right.
The last time I had to change a battery, it was like an all-day affair at Ford. I mean, they had to take the car apart. It used to be under the back seat.
They
right?
got you now.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's time to upgrade or whatever. You get 12 pages of small print that nobody will ever read, and you have no idea what
right.
kind of personal whatever that you're just sacrificing for
Right.
convenience, right?
For convenience, right. And efficiency. And I mean, these are good things, by the way, and I champion them. And the question is finding good ways to do it. I remember when I first became a homeowner, and we'd have these Reader's Digest guides, right? Mm-hmm. And you could usually figure out how things work. I don't know how anything works anymore.
No.
I'm just at the mercy of the convenience gods, and I hope that they set me straight.
Well, the other day I bought Cliff's Notes for a Reader's Digest condensed version of a convenience guide.
Yeah, yeah. Now, that said, I have to tell a story that advances the convenience argument, and that is the convenience store. And the best one that I know of, and probably in the free world, I don't know if I think it's regional. I think it's Midwestern, Southern, is Quick Trip.
Oh, they're great.
And
it's a great corporate culture.
And I'd made a trip to Italy some years ago, probably about 20 years ago. And I wrote this article in Ingram's about the thesis of which was Italy's a wonderful country, but why aren't there any quick trips in Italy, right? So, and it was based on the fact that I was running out of gas. I pull into a gas station, and they're closed for lunch for 3 hours. 3 hour siesta, right? So I just got to wait there. And well, fortunately, I will say this: on the positive side of convenience, they have a system. You know, it's like an ATM card or something. If you know the code, if you have a card, you can get your own gas, right? Well, I had no idea of that. I mean, but some Italian guy came by and showed me how to do it, so I was able to get gas. And I didn't have to wait 3 hours. But, you know, Quick Trip has these, like, you could buy a soft drink for, you know, like you could feed an army, you know, for a week or, you know, and it's for 98 cents or whatever. Everyone is bright, efficient, well-trained, polite. The real giveaway is that all the squeegees have the rubber attached, right? And every little bin has its own squeegee.
And can you believe that the gas pumps print receipts?
Right.
They don't wait until you're finally finished and go, see attendant.
Yeah, right.
See attendant? I would have done that in the first place if I would have known that.
So Quick Trip, I think, is the embodiment of American convenience. It's not
Absolutely.
It's not a 7-Eleven. It's not these other things.
Well, there are competitors around the country like Wawa and things that have really good reputations. Now, I don't, but Quick Trip, man, it's hard to beat that.
So anyhow, I write this article, and it's a very favorable article about Italy, generally speaking, and it's a tongue-in-cheek. Mm-hmm. I said what Italy lacks is the Quick Trip. They lack convenience culture. They're not into that at all. It's just not something they do. And then I get this outraged letter from this woman, you know, calling me an ugly American. You represent the worst of America, you know, wanting a Quick Trip.
True.
So I wrote her back a conciliatory letter saying, ma'am, I wrote this with my tongue in my cheek. Please, I appreciate the fact that, you know, I was able to stay inside the walls of the Vatican. I appreciate the art and the culture and everything else, you know. But there is something to be said for convenience in a country like Italy. It's like on the cusp, half convenient, half not. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, when I bunch of light planes, it's a long story, but I was doing a documentary in Rome, and I had to meet my crew at the Vatican. Fallback time was 2 o'clock. I had already blown by the original meeting time, and this was just before cell phones. And I'm going to argue for the value of cell phones because we couldn't communicate with each other other than the 2 o'clock meeting time. I get to the car rental place at 1:15. I get my car at the Rome airport. And I said, how long do they get to St. Peter's? And she said, about 45 minutes if there's no traffic. This is Rome. There's no traffic. If there's no traffic in Rome, right? So I look at my watch. It's 1:15. I said, well, I got to go for it because these guys can't wait around. They got to go to the next assignment. I'm the head of this thing. I can't not be there. So I get in my car. And you get out of the road out of the airport, perfectly modern, American, convenient. You get on the ring road, not bad. I'm really surprised. Rome's not as bad as I thought it was. I get on the arterial. It's not too bad. It's sort of like a Southwest traffic way, you know, that kind of thing. Those of you who live in Kansas City or have a place like that, it's a reasonably good arterial. And then the arterial ends, and I'm in the middle of a Fellini movie. I mean, there's like you're in a traffic circle with roads leading out in literally 5 or 6 different directions. You have motorcyclists right in your face, you know, that are swirling around. There's no directions. It's
constant honking, I assume.
Exactly, right. I don't know where I'm going. So I mastered enough Italian to be able to get myself out of a circumstance like that. So there's a guy right in my face. I could have gone over and combed his hair if I wanted to. It was that close. I said, per andare a San Pietro, you know, which is, how do I get to St. Peter's? I think. And he goes, fortunately, Italians use their hands a lot. So, you know. Now, if I'd been looking for McDonald's, I'd still be looking. But each traffic circle I'd get to, you know, they point in the direction I get there. And then all of a sudden I look up and boom, there it is, right? I mean, it's not like looking for at a store. It just looms. The St. Peter's does in Rome, and so I got there just in time. Although I will say the Fellini movie theme continues. I'm driving around looking for a place to park. I see a literal dwarf. I mean, Fellini didn't even have to imagine stuff. He could just, walk around Rome and copy stuff. And he's manning a space of about 6 spots, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes, come over. So I pull in and he said, how much? I said, come in, como, or whatever the phrase was at the time, cuánto? He goes, blah, 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 blah. I give him a bunch of money and I park. I start running to get to meet the gate, which is about a mile away. And then I'm thinking, does that guy have any relationship to those spots, I don't know. But Italy is one of those cultures where, it's half convenient, half not. They haven't taken the whole jump as we have, but I'm not sure. And I think you're right. I think we've jumped too far.
Well, now the cell phone is your GPS.
Right.
It's your guide, and it's your language translator. It's so many things. It's so pervasive that now we have no leverage as individuals, period. Our convenience has eaten us alive.
Well, in fact, it has made us a vassal of the greater state.
Exactly.
I mean, I won't even leave a room without my cell phone.
That's right.
And if I hit my pocket and it's not there, panic.
And then we're going to find out it causes some horrible disease for carrying it around. And guess what? Only everybody has one.
Right. And the state can find you wherever you are, And
yeah.
I can still take out my battery, but
convenience will get us in the end.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. There's some examples, like I say, that I think very positive. That are, I remember, for instance, when I was a kid, and we would the one weekend we drove. I grew up in New Jersey. We drove down the New Jersey shore for a few days. We found a place we really liked. And we were, I was about 8 or 9, and we, Dad, Mom, can we stay here? This is a great place. And then the problem was my parents ran out of money, right? So what that meant at the time was literally, I remember this, like it was yesterday, my father had to drive back, had to wait till Monday, drive back to Newark, which was about an hour and a half away from where we were, wait for the bank to open, go to the bank, get some money out, and drive back down, right?
Now we have all the money we want at any time. It's just that we don't realize it yet, but it's not worth a penny.
Well, there's that. But it's also, what we do realize is that every time we transact, we're telling who's ever watching.
That's right.
Exactly what we're spending money on, where it's going. And when they want to withhold that privilege from us, and we've seen that now with punishing
PayPal and all that stuff,
punishing political opponents by denying them access to their financials. What was it? Was something
Bank
PayPal.
of America,
PayPal. What were they going to do?
PayPal.
Keep your money.
Keep your money, and PayPal's going to keep it. That was absurd. Bank of America. Oh, you got something to do with guns,
right?
You like guns. We're your account's out of here, buddy.
Right. And it's not like anyone there actually believes in that. It's just that they're afraid of the pressure groups that do.
Yeah.
And
that's the danger of the convenience of the debit card and the convenience of all these things, is that eventually this AI wild card,
right,
which is another new term. We were talking about language before, but AI is such a powerful. And this all came in via convenience, under the cover of convenience.
Right.
But AI is such a powerful thing. It's got people like Elon Musk going, this scares the hell out of me.
Right. And this is artificial intelligence you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot goes under that umbrella.
A lot goes under it, but it's all this tracking and projecting behaviors based upon trillions of data points.
Right.
That are so overwhelming that no one can go in and go, well, that's not going to happen. It's like, well, it happened a trillion times.
Right, exactly.
We're kind of guessing you're going to try to do this.
You remember when we were coming of age, there was a lot of backlash against subliminal advertising, right?
Subliminal advertising.
Where they would like slip something in there, allegedly, just some blip for 30 seconds. And your mind couldn't even record it, but it would somehow seep in that I'm thirsty. I need a Coca-Cola or whatever.
Yeah,
whatever
there'd be 3 frames
Right.
thrown in the middle of a video feed or something that would show you popcorn or something.
And that was a source of worry then. And yet today, multiply that by 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how many things we're being bombarded with. And yet, you, I suspect we like to think we're immune to that we could transcend that. And maybe we can. But there are a lot of people who obviously cannot. I mean, they're part of the cargo cult waiting for their plane to arrive with the K rations and the old radios. That is an area that is frightening. Going to the movies has changed. Have you been lately?
No. I think I may be finished with that.
Well, I love the movies. I've been going since I was a little kid. I used to go even up until a few years ago. You went to pre-COVID, I'd go once a weekend. Now, I'd look for like a Sunday rainy day movie, that you'd only see if it was a rainy day and it was a Sunday. And I would walk to the movie theater. It was so old school. And the prices were like $4.50. I'm talking about 2019 for an early bird. Now, there's some theaters, old school theaters, that still exist where there's a ticket taker, you pay for your ticket, you walk in. There's a guy behind the thing selling popcorn and Cokes and whatnot, I mean, it costs like $30 for a thing, but, to feed a family of one. But now you go to these like big megaplexes, like AMC kind of theaters. And I went, when I went on election night just to avoid all the noise, right? So I saw good at movies. And it was a stupid movie. It wasn't even worth talking about, but it was a time killer. I didn't want to be around people watching election results. First thing is they have kiosks now where you buy your own ticket.
Oh, man. The McDonald's thing.
Right. And
convenient.
Unless you go all the time, and it probably becomes, second nature, someone had to come out and show me, I feel like such a geezer there, trying to buy a ticket. And then I have to pick a seat. Like, it's not like first come, first serve. You got to pick a seat. Are the gray ones the taken ones or the green ones? That sort of thing. Take a seat. Then you get inside and you want to buy a Coke. And they have these machines where you have 4 million choices, right? You push one button, diet, Coke, with cherry, with vanilla, with all these flavors, blah, 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 with size. I mean, it takes me a half hour to get beyond into the theater, right? And and if you go I suppose if you're 12 and you go every day and, your parents drop you off, you know how to do this.
It's all like a video game.
Right.
I want pinball.
Yeah.
I want to drop the quarter in, pull the thing, and intuitively, I know my job.
And viscerally.
Yes.
You've got hands-on.
Yeah, it's high touch.
Right.
You got to bang that ball around and keep it alive as, hey, hot potato, and keep it alive.
Without tilting.
Yeah.
Right, so there was a constraint, a natural constraint.
I don't want to go in and have to learn some new job to entertain myself.
Right.
I mean, Pong, okay. But stop there.
I thought Pong was taxing my capabilities even then. Why play Pong when you have foosball around,
Yeah.
So.
And, I was an early proponent of that high-touch stuff. When I did a bar called the Buzzard Beach, it's still around.
Right.
We had a basement area there, and I said, I'm going high touch with this thing because this was the era of video games.
Right.
I put foosball back there.
Yeah.
Pool tables.
Darts.
Darts. I had a jukebox with 45s that dropped down and you picked. Went full shuffleboard, had shuffleboard.
Right.
Did that whole thing, and that thing went crazy.
Crazy good.
Crazy good. It's still.
People respond to it.
30 years later.
Right.
They're still embracing that space because I said, you know what? There's a place for this analog lifestyle.
Right.
And digital's great. And I agree. The convenience that it brings is wonderful, but it's a weapon.
It's a weapon, and you also lose. And there's the other thing, not just the ability of the government to track you and surveil you, which they can do, but you lose that the common space, the communal space.
Absolutely. And we don't know if this stuff's killing us.
Yeah.
The microwave oven we use every day.
God, I depend.
Who knows what that's cooking?
I've never turned on my stove. Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife's a good cook, by the way, but I rely fully on the microwave. If that's killing me,
it's got to,
right.
Convenience, baby.
But here's an example of what you miss. I had usually I go to my ATM, and it's very convenient, and I like it. I mean, it works usually pretty much.
Doesn't give you any lip.
Yeah, right, and it's efficient, and it works 90% of the time. But occasionally it'll eat up one of your checks or something. So I had to go back into the actual bank. Mm-hmm. And this one, I won't name the name. It's a good bank. I've been banking there forever. But I go into the bank, and I'm in the bank, and I'm thinking, oh, there's a bag lady sitting off to the side. I thought she was a bag lady, like trying to get warm or something. And so I'm waiting in line.
Haven't heard that term for a while.
What, bag lady?
Yeah.
That's not a term that's officially sanctioned by our enemies.
I'm sure there's some lofty term now, like,
homeless. Homeless was one of those
person of the bag or something. I don't know.
Keeper of the bag.
A bagged person.
Homeless was one of those words they dropped on us during the Reagan years to take away from Reagan's obvious successes. So I go in there, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what happens to public spaces today, the bag lady sitting around. And then she looks over and she goes, Jack? I said, yeah. She comes over, she goes, oh, I'm your biggest fan. I said, oh, great. I'm signing autographs for what I thought was a bag lady. She just looked like a bag lady, Maybe I hadn't seen a real human being in the wild for a while. I don't know, but
I was having a drink or lunch or something with you a couple of months ago, and some guy in a full mask came up and told you he followed everything you did and keep up the good work.
I remember that, right?
And it's like, wow.
In a mask.
In a mask.
Yeah, that surprised me. Usually guys coming up in a mask are coming up to me, we talked about this earlier, but about like the lady did at the Paneras not too long ago where I was with a blind fellow. We're standing there just talking about football. We're not even talking politics. And she goes, why aren't you wearing a mask? This was in 2022, not during the heart of COVID. And I said, and this is part of the price you pay for being in a public communal space, like at Paneras, which is actually, I think, a great institution. And it's kind of old school in a lot of ways. You're allowed you go up to a counter and you give your own order. I don't know if they have kiosks there, but I haven't seen one. I wouldn't use it anyhow. But I go up and I said, well, because this is America, I don't have to wear a mask. It's not a law. It's not a mandate. She goes, my husband is sick. And I said, well, why don't you just get, they have carryout service here, curb service. You can just order it and they'll pick it up. She goes, she starts huffing and puffing. And she goes, you're not 6 feet away from me. I said, look, I can't reach you. You're at least 5 feet away from me. And then she goes, I hope you two rot in hell, right? That's the downside of the communal space, right? Okay, we're rotting in hell now. I said, but what am I supposed to say? I said, well, same to you, ma'am. What is it? Merry Christmas. Have a nice day. And yet, and as you're seeing in places like New York City, the communal spaces have been overcome. So there's a downside to all upsides, and there's an upside to many downsides. The trick is to find the happy medium, and I'm not sure.
Half mask.
Yeah, half mask, right. There's certain things you can't halfway do. As C.S. Lewis said, you can't be halfway Christian, You either are or you aren't. You got to commit or you don't commit. It is a major commitment, and you got to be able to make it. Now, convenience is not that way. There's a way to sort good convenience from bad convenience. And also, I think we've got to fight to keep government out of our conveniences. And
we just got to make sure that sloth doesn't take over, that we don't go too far with convenience to where we're actually surrendering our individual ethics and our liberty and all these things, because we will.
Yeah.
I mean, we get seduced into that.
I think a good blend is a a Chick-fil-A. I already sang the praises of Quick Trip earlier.
At least I know where you're hanging out.
Yeah, right. Now, early in about, I would say they started this in late 2019. They shut down the Quick Trip, the Chick-fil-A that I go to.
I'm sorry.
for major rehab. And I was afraid they were shutting it down altogether. And part of the reason, the only reason I started frequenting Chick-fil-A is an ideological sympathy when they were being hammered by
I remember
various
that.
forces.
Big deal.
And so I started going. I said, boy, this place is great. And now I discovered why it is the most popular convenience fast food place in America. And it has been for years running. So they shut down. I said, my gosh, are they taking the Chick-fil-A away? No. They were restructuring it to expand their size of their store and to double the drive-through lines that went through, right? And then they finished just before COVID hits in March of 2020. And I'm thinking, did my local Quick Trip manager,
Chick-fil-A
manager, were they spawning COVID, protozoa in their back room, launching them on the world so that when it hit, they would be perfectly suited to take advantage of it? They were perfectly suited. It became a major stopping place for everyone. And you go to Chick-fil-A, and it is like you think America used to be and ought to be. Do you ever go?
No, I don't eat chicken.
Okay. Why? No, ideological reasons, or
No.
you just don't like chicken?
Well, it's probably nothing for the podcast, but I've been advised
You had a
that
bad experience with chicken?
chicken and my blood type don't go.
Okay. Well, yeah, we don't want to get into that detail.
Yeah.
But it is a combination of convenience and old-fashioned service.
Uh-huh.
And it's staffed by these wonderful young people,
Right.
all of whom seem thrilled to be there. They're incredibly polite. They're incredibly efficient. You get there and there's a line 20 cars ahead of you. You know it's only going to take you 5 or 10 minutes to get through that whole line. And then at the end, you're going to have this perfect meal, including salad and soup and chicken and whatnot, And I, at one point, and this is where the blend works, because at one point, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I read that Chick-fil-A had caved into the various pressure groups, and that
Yeah.
were now,
I heard that.
donating to some LGBT cause or whatever,
Right.
for fear of being called a homophobe, and that's what.
Well, they were actually staging protests in
Right.
there and all that stuff. Yeah.
So I sent a note to the manager at my Chick-fil-A, and I said, "What's going on here? I need a straight answer. Have you guys caved, or are you standing your ground?" And he goes, "Listen, that's the National Foundation. It has nothing to do. I own this place, and that ain't happening here. So you're safe." But he came back to me personally, right?
Wow.
And now, and when I drive through, I see him. He's handing out sauce at the end, and we stop and talk. So
That convenience thing that you brought. How did they know? Pre-COVID,
Right.
that this was going to be the big deal. Walmart was disturbingly, and I mean, you talk about convenience.
Right.
When you see things happen that aren't convenient
right,
under the guise of convenience,
yes,
what you're watching is something nefarious. Now, at the neighborhood Walmart when I was in suburban Kansas City, right outside on the Kansas side, I had one of those neighborhood Walmart grocery stores.
right,
Well, all of a sudden, about 8 months before the COVID thing hit, they took giant segments of their parking lot right by the front, all the most desired parking spaces, and they suddenly put signs up that said, "This is for your grocery pickup." Okay?
right,
And we're talking about the best 18 spaces in the lot.
right,
In a small store, in a small lot.
right.
Never was there ever a car in it. It was never used. Now that told me something is up.
Well,
And I went in and said to the cashier, "Has anyone ever used that?" And she goes, "Very rarely." And I go, "All of your parking spaces are devoted to this thing that does not exist."
Right.
Now they knew that this was coming down because bam.
Well, I think I could safely say that my local Chick-fil-A did not orchestrate the release of the COVID virus to facilitate their business. I cannot say that with confidence about a Walmart or an Amazon.
Well, and another thing I want people should think about when it comes to this Walmart prescience that they had.
Yeah.
Do you remember about 7 or 8 years ago when in several Walmarts, all of a sudden, everybody's EBT card went limitless? Do you remember this?
I remember that, right.
This was
That's your electronic benefits card.
Yes.
The food stamps.
Food
card,
stamps.
Right.
All of a sudden, everybody in these Walmarts, and there were a dozen of them maybe, different towns, they went limitless. And so everybody just starts grabbing. It's like that old show, Supermarket Sweepstakes.
Right.
And they're all grabbing as much as they can, and they're filling these carts up, they're pulling them up, and they're going, well, it's free. I guess that's it. I mean, hey, what can I do?
Right.
Your card says free, so unlimited.
Right.
And so they're all playing along with this thing, right? And it devastates the stores. And then all of a sudden, nobody took blame. Nobody took any kind of responsibility. It just went away.
Right.
That was a test. That was an AI test, watching what will happen when we shut off or when we turn on for that
spigot.
That spigot for that preferred clientele.
Our base.
The
ones with the Obama phones.
Exactly.
I didn't know there were such a thing as Obama phones until people started bragging about their Obama phones.
That's right. Oh, that one lady, that was
right,
great.
She was hysterical.
Oh,
Cleveland
man.
Or wherever
Everybody got Obama phone.
Everybody
in Cleveland.
I didn't get one.
What was it? Everybody in Cleveland got Obama phone?
Well, the thing is, and
great.
This may sound overly conspiratorial, what you just said about Walmart, but here's what we know, and that is that they were wargaming strategies for a pandemic in 2020, in 2019, 2018. Now, I don't know that they knew that one was coming, but
there was one gentleman who said before the pandemic that there will be a sudden pandemic that will strike during Donald Trump's administration. Do you remember that?
I remember seeing that, and who was it that said that?
Anthony Fauci.
How about that? Mm-hmm. By the way, he went to my high school, so I have to take some credit for him or blame.
You sound a little like him.
Here's what's interesting about Fauci in that regard is that if you look back at his older videos and from the 70s, when he was screwing up the whole AIDS crisis, purposely or not, I don't know, he didn't have much of a New York accent. And he's been away from New York all these years. And then when he becomes this pop icon the last few years, it's like he just came off the streets of Brooklyn. I don't know what that's about. I think it was to make him more endearing or more ethnic or more regional or something, but it was
well, that's bizarre.
Yes.
Gonna have to look at that when next time I watch old Fauci footage.
Right. I mean,
which is something we all do at the Edge household.
Well, I tell you what, I watched these. I like the documentary Robert Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci. I read the book; it's brilliant. It tells you more than you want to know sometimes. That's
what my biggest fear is.
Yeah.
I don't have all that much gray matter to fit Fauci in too much of it.
But, and Amazon was another one that seemed altogether too primed to respond.
Primed.
With all those little trucks running around,
Oh, yeah.
But here's what's odd, too. For 20 years or so, I've been through my affiliation with Ingram's regional business magazine. I've been the moderator at probably 30 or 40 economic planning, urban planning seminars where you have 20, 25 leaders in the industry sitting around a table, strategizing about the future. And they came up with a document about the future of Kansas City. It's called something Kansas, Visions of Kansas City. I don't know what it's called. They all have new names or whatever. But what was intrigued me about it is that you put out a document in 2022. And, of course, like urban planners have been doing for the last 50 years, I don't know, however long, they call for increased population density, increased public transportation.
Oh, yeah.
Increased your reliance on, communal spaces. You put out a document that's probably 10, 20,000 words, and you know what word's not in there?
What?
COVID. How could you plan this? We saw what happened in cities that were dense and that relied on public transportation during the COVID, the hysteria, the height of the COVID hysteria, like New York City. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people left the cities. Other people were trapped in these stupid apartments where they couldn't even come and go, where you couldn't even have handymen come or housekeepers. You couldn't even, some of these places wouldn't even allow friends. And if you got on an elevator in one of those, it was like the person looking at you like they were now riding the detonator at Worlds of Fun. I mean, they were frightened of seeing you on that elevator. And
we can't forget that, folks.
And yet they forgot it. So they're back with their streetcars. They're back with their public transportation. They're back with their condensed living, their high rises, their elevators, as though it never happened, because they have a larger game plan. I mean, sometimes I suspect these strategies bump heads.
Yeah.
But one of them relents, or they compromise for a while, and then you're back on the whole global control agenda where you pack people into tight spaces.
The fake little cityscape things really got me because I thought, okay, this is a Disney-esque representation of a pedestrian area.
Right, right.
But if you have to drive to it,
and then
is it a pedestrian area?
To find a parking
and then
space.
go up some spiraling parking thing. Is that a pedestrian area?
No, I think the whole point is lost. The convenience is lost.
The convenience is lost.
You have fake convenience.
Yeah.
And you have coerced inconvenience and fake convenience. And
we got a term. We need to create a term and throw it out there. What's that word for fake? That
faux.
Well, there's another one.
It's French. We French speakers say faux.
There's another one that ersatz.
Ersatz. You know, that was I think originally used in Germany as the German term for the fake coffee they drank during World War II.
Oh, is that right?
I think that's where it comes from. It sounds like a German word, right? Ersatz! You know, you expect to be at the end of a firing squad when you hear ersatz. But it means, fake, basically, right?
This faux convenience thing is, because they use that convenience as it's fake.
No, it's totally fake. And when you have to, if a city springs up organically, it's one thing. And there's been a lot of I grew up in a city my neighborhood was wonderfully organically convenient. I mean, I could walk any place and go any place and hop on a bus. I could be in New York City in 45 minutes. And
they all have a lot of warts, when they grow that way.
Right.
And people just can't have that. Karen cannot have that.
And they cannot have that. They have to get the warts out. And so that there's nothing organic about these fake organic spaces.
That's right. It's Disney.
It's Disney, right. But bad Disney.
Yeah.
It's like contemporary Disney, not old, happily fake Walt Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, it doesn't work in an age of pandemics. It all falls apart. Mm-hmm. And we're not supposed to notice. We're supposed to forget.
Yeah.
I mean, we memory hold things before they become memories.
Mm-hmm.
And we're forced to subsidize all this stuff because it's not organic stuff didn't need subsidies.
That's right.
Like little Geppetto the shoemaker didn't ask for a government subsidy so he could, hammer on your shoes. Right?
And I think that's the whole point.
Yeah.
They want to subsidize it because they own it.
And if they own it, they own control over the people who live in these environments.
That's right.
They know that people who live collectively in high-rise environments and density environments will vote for them. Mm-hmm. Will vote for the people who are handing out turkeys at Christmas time like Boss Tweed did 150 years ago.
Exactly.
Or handing out whatever they're handing out now, rent control or subsidized housing or subsidized education or subsidized whatever. They own you, they control you, and it's all for your convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the world we live in today, or choose to. That's why the real rebellion has been among people who choose not to live that way. People who live in countrysides, who take care of themselves, who sustain themselves, who maintain their own living, they are the enemy of the state today.
And they're giving up convenience.
Right.
And that's the very obvious thing that they're giving up, but it's really much more than that.
They go off the grid, which is the ultimate inconvenience because it becomes in some place the ultimate safe harbor. So look at my summer place is near and among Amish communities, and I'm sometimes tempted to move in.
Yeah.
I have no skills. I mean, I'd be totally dependent on you, but I could tell jokes around a campfire. Whatever. I could build a campfire. I learned that at Boy Scouts. So, anyhow, now that we've solved the convenience problem, or at least exposed it. Loy Edge, thank you for doing that.
Thank
with me
you, Jack.
today. And we'll be back next week with a new show here on Upstream with Cashill and Edge.
We'll see you then.